Hi math friends, today we're looking at our study guide for Pythagorean theorem, so we hope this helps. Use whatever you need to from this instructional video. For this one we're looking at finding a missing side length, and that's essentially what the Pythagorean theorem is for here. So remember to take your right angle and go across from there to help you find the hypotenuse. Now we know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared here, so I know that 4 I can say is a or b, and x can be a or b also. The one that matters is c. So I'm going to do a squared plus b squared, which is x, equals c squared. Remember, you can do these squareds on your calculator too if you don't have them memorized. So 16 plus x squared equals, do 17 squared on your calculator if you need to, like me, 289. And then we'll make sure to subtract that 16 because we want to isolate the variable there. We want to get that x squared by itself. So we get x squared equals 273. And then we'll square root our answer. And the directions on this at the top here say to round to the nearest tenth if necessary, and also to show your work. All right, so if you're showing work, you should show something like this, and this rounds to 16.5. So we'll make sure to circle our final answer there. Number 2, across from the right angle, this is going to be c. So when we substitute in for the Pythagorean theorem, we get 12 squared plus 16 squared equals x squared. And if you need to use your calculator for these squares again, go ahead and do so. 144 plus 16, or 16 squared, so plus 256 equals x squared. So now that 144 and 256 are on the same side of that equal sign, we're going to add them. And we get 400. And then we're going to square root that 400 to get our final answer. And it looks like we get 20. All right, the next part here has you verifying. It says determine which of the following are right triangles. And it says hint there are 2, but there's actually 1 like we said in class. That was incorrect. So when you verify this, the longest side is going to be C if it works. So let's go ahead and do 2 squared plus 3 squared. Let's see if that equals 4 squared. If it works, then this is a right triangle. And if it doesn't, it's not. 4 plus 9. Does that equal 16? Well, let's do 4 plus 9. That's 13. Does that equal 16? No, that does not equal 16. So A does not work. That's not a right triangle. Let's try the same here. 8 would be the longest side on this one. Always look at the numbers because we're just trying to say, is this a right triangle? And we'll say 5 squared plus 6 squared. Does that equal 8 squared? So if you need to use your calculator for these, you definitely can. So 25 plus 36. Does that equal 64? All right, well, if we do 25 plus 36, we actually get 61. So 61 is not the same as 64, so that's not a right triangle either. But again, we're still showing our work for these. Let's try the next one. 13 is the longest side, so that could be C. So let's do 12 squared plus 5 squared. Does that equal 13 squared? So we got 144 plus 25. Does that equal 169, which is 13 squared? So go ahead and add these up. And this does work. 169 equals 169. So this one is a right triangle. All right, so since we know that we're looking for 1, we know that we're done. However, we're still going to look at the last one to verify it to make sure. So 9 squared plus 7 squared, does that equal 16 squared? Let's check. So we got 81 plus 49 equals 256. Does it? It doesn't seem like those numbers are high enough to do that. So this is actually 130. That does not equal 256. So this one is not a right triangle. So only letter C was. All right, let's take a look at section 2 here. It's about Brianna planting a tree. It says she needs to place the wires 13 feet up the trunk. So when I'm thinking about a tree, okay, there's my wonderful tree. So the wires are going to be 13 feet up and 4 feet from the base. Maybe my drawing's not great, but this is what I should have. So the wires are going to go like this. So the wires will be our hypotenuse. This says draw a picture that represents this scenario. So we're done. We're only asked to draw a picture here. So pay attention to the directions here. Number 2, it has an airplane flying directly over a house. So I'm going to draw a house. And then I'm going to draw the best airplane that I can. All right. And it says the distance between the house and the airport is 17 miles. So think about how you get from a house to an airport. You would drive there, right? So it would be straight across. And it says the altitude height of the airplane is 5.5 miles. So the airplane is 5.5 miles up. And then determine the distance between the airplane and the airport. So when an airplane is descending, it's going to descend like this. All right, so now I have a right triangle here. And I know across from the right angle is C. So this one asks us to go ahead and calculate that distance. So we'll have to use Pythagorean theorem here. 5.5 squared plus 17 squared equals C squared. And go ahead and do 5.5 squared. That's not one that I have memorized, so I'm using my calculator here. So 30.25 plus 289, and that's going to equal C squared. So we'll add them together. 319.25. And remember to solve here, we're going to square root now. So our final answer, and it says round to the nearest tenth. We should get 17.9 when we round. And look at this. This is measured in miles. So we'll say 17.9 miles. MI is the abbreviation for miles. So we could write it like that. All right, this next one says you are mountain climbing. You see a cliff directly in front of you. The distance from your feet to the base is 18 feet. The distance from your feet to the top of the cliff is 31 feet. Draw a picture. So this one, kind of confusing. So let's think about how that works. You're standing here in front of a cliff, and it says your feet to the base of the mountain is 18 feet. So you look at your feet to the top of the cliff. So your feet to the top of the cliff. So the cliff is over here. And from your feet to the top is 31 feet. So this would be my right triangle, my right angle. This would be C. And it says draw a picture that demonstrates this scenario. So this was kind of like number 1. It's only drawing a picture. And it's a little tricky to draw. And it made us think through each little part. Number 4 says you're helping your friend move furniture. You need to know the width, height, and diagonal of the front door frame. So it says the width of the door frame. Well, doors are typically rectangles, unless you have a really strange house. So the width is 44 inches. It says the length of the diagonal is 102. So when we read that carefully, that means that we have 102 inches like this. It says, what is the height of the door frame? So we're looking for the height. If we look at this carefully, now we have a right triangle. And 102 is going to be C. All right, so if I'm solving for a leg here, I can say the leg, x squared equals c squared minus b squared. And instead of putting c, I'm going to go ahead and put 102 squared minus 44 squared. So go ahead and do those squareds on your calculator as well. I'm going to have x squared equals 10,404 minus 1,936 and we subtract them, we get 8,468 equals x squared, and we need to find the square root of that, so definitely use your calculator for that. And we round to the nearest tenth because that's what we're doing for this entire exercise. 92.02. All right, I'm going to write this out a little bit here and then round it. This is 98.0217. Now when we round to the nearest tenth, remember we're going to look to the place value next to it. To show that you're rounding this, we should write 92.0. That 0 doesn't change the value, but it's going to show that we rounded. And this is in inches, so we're going to write IN for inches. All right, we have one more. It says you're standing in front of a flagpole. Okay, so let's draw the picture first. So you're standing in front of a flagpole. I'm assuming there's a flag on it. All right, it says the distance from your feet to the base of the pole is 18 feet. So this is 18. Okay, the height of the pole is 11 feet. This isn't drawn to scale, but that's okay. Draw the scenario, so we did draw it, and then determine the distance from your feet to the top of the pole, to the nearest foot. Oh, so we drew a right triangle again, and we're looking for the hypotenuse. All right, so we got 18 squared plus 11 squared equals c squared. All right, so go ahead and use your calculator to help you with those squares. 324 plus 121. So we get 445 equals c squared. And then we need to go ahead and square root that. And we get 21.095, so we'll go ahead and round that to 21.1. And let's go ahead and write that final answer in feet, 21.1 feet. All right, so that's the end of that. Hopefully that helps you. Go back and look at what you need to, and good luck with all that. You're going to do awesome.